All right, everybody. We're back to Miles Dewey Davis. And we're just going to cover about a 10-year period, the 50s. We're dealing with the 50s right now. And this is a very pivotal period in Miles' life. A lot of stuff going on. He's a busy man and a complicated man. Let's just use that word, complicated. So the first complication is he's playing with Charlie Parker. And Charlie Parker's got a pretty serious drug habit. And, you know, you're not sure if you're going to get paid, whether he's using money for some of his other pleasures or they're going to pay you. And, you know, it mood swings and whatnot like that were crazy, so it was a difficult time. Somehow Miles ended up in an association with Gil Evans. He was always looking for something a little different, always. And that collaboration led to the Miles Davis Nonet, some recordings in 4849, and they were not very successful as recordings or live performances. So reluctantly, Miles ended up returning to the group with Bird, and he stayed there for a while. Several years later, 1957 to be exact, 7 years later, 8 years later, those Nonet recordings would be compiled and released as the groundbreaking Birth of the Cool. The great arrangements by Jerry Mulligan and Gil Evans and John Lewis, great pianist. In later years, he'd be asked to revisit that music twice. The first time he would flat out refuse because he did not like to go backwards. He was always a forward-thinking person as a human being and as an artist. And the second time, it was so late in his life that before the project actually got started, it was a Jerry Mulligan project to take place in Europe. He died, and Wallace Roney was recruited to do the parts of Miles Davis. And as a lot of you know, Wallace Roney was a great fan of Miles Davis. He could sound exactly like him, and unfortunately we lost him to COVID about 3 or 4 months ago. But getting back to Miles, this is a very tumultuous period, and Miles is moving back and forth here and there, and you know, he's having problems. He's having his own struggles with drugs. He decides to get the heck out of New York, and he heads west. He leaves his wife in New York with their kids, including the new baby, Miles Davis IV. And believe it or not, the great Betty Carter was a person who took care of Miles' wife and kids. And the word is that Miles was indebted to her for the rest of his life, because it was a very difficult period in his life. He could not take care of his family, and Betty Carter realized that and stepped in and took care of business. A lot of bad things happened during this period. Bird gets arrested, Miles is on his own, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that. He's got financial problems, can hardly pay his rent. You know, he got this drug dependency, just a lot of bad is coming his way. He tries to go back home to clean up. That was his purpose for leaving New York, go back to East St. Louis to clean up, and I guess he did. Lock himself in a room and go cold turkey and clean himself up. But even after that, it didn't last. He was back dabbing again before too long, and back a junkie again before too long. The story is he's in Detroit, and of course he's playing with Elvin Jones and guys like that who lived in the area. And one night at Baker's, you've heard me talk about Baker's Keyboard Lounge. One night at Baker's, he walks in and Clifford Brown is playing, and he pretty much just bum rushed the stage and started playing what he wanted to play. And they said he looked bad. He had his horn under his coat in a paper bag. Miles is 24, 25, and he's looking bad, and he's doing bad financially and spiritually and everything. And it was a very embarrassing moment for him. And it woke him up, and he decided that he would kick the drugs for the last time, for the final time. And he did with the help of a boxer. He got into boxing at this time. And many people may know he was a Golden Glove champion in Harlem. He had an album for Jack Jackson. He really loved boxers. His favorite was Sugar Ray, and he liked Sugar Ray's attitude. And the story is that that harsh exterior that he took on later in life came directly from Sugar Ray. Always, I am the man, I can do this, get out of my way. That was Miles' attitude, and he learned that from Sugar Ray's example. So now he's starting to get clean and physically fit, going to the gym, taking on the combative nature of a boxer, and this is starting to affect his music, but in a positive way because he is clean. He's back in New York, and he's starting to record with various groups of musicians, including Sonny Rollins, and all the recordings at this period, I think some 4 or 5 albums for Prestige maybe, were all strong albums. He's doing a great job. He ends up in Paris and around this time, and discovered that, how shall I say this? He discovered that he could be treated like a man, was something he wasn't accustomed to, being raised in St. Louis area and even in New York. And so when he came back from Paris, he was depressed again for a while. He'd also found a great lover in Paris and was, sad for having to leave her, but their careers weren't working together, whatever. He came back and immediately put himself into his music. He started creating yet another form of jazz, believe it or not. And we aren't talking about cool anymore. He's left that behind. We're now talking hard bop. Well, what is hard bop? Hard bop is bebop slowed down, more introspective, less rhythmic, tempos aren't so fast, more modal, etc. And this is where he is going. And this is the period that is leading up to his quintets, first with Sonny and people like that, and then, first with Train. He fired Train, hires Sonny, and then later on, he fires Train again and adds Cannonball and makes it a sextet. And out of that association comes a lot of great concerts, as well as the wonderful pivotal album that we all know for his best work, that includes Freddy Freeloader and all of those great tunes. Miles is just doing great work. He also recorded about this time, "Someday My Prince Will Come." And he argued and insisted that on that cover there will be a black female image. Very, very much into his racial pride and being very in the forefront about that as a result of his experiences in Paris and then coming back to his country. And so his wife, Frances, was pictured on the cover of "Someday My Prince Will Come." Miles is still struggling with his demons. The marriage did not last, but You know, Miles's music from this period is perhaps the most groundbreaking and long-lasting music of his career. So this is his struggles in the 50s, etc. We also need to point out that while playing a gig at the Blue Note, we walk out to escort what they describe as a blonde to her cab, and is approached by a policeman who says, "Move on." And when Miles responded that, "I'm working here," let's just say the guy put his hands on Miles, and as a result of that, Miles suffered a beating that had him hospitalized. Required 5 stitches in the head and everything else, and this helped to crystallize his animosity toward the American attitude toward black folks in this country. It was one of those things that informed his attitude for the rest of his life. However, Miles continued to work with musicians of all colors, including the great Bill Evans, which he did use on Kinda Blue, one of his signature albums, because although Miles understood the politics and the social, economic things, he did not let that affect his relationship with the music or musicians. That's what life was like for Miles in the 50s. It was tough, and it's pretty much representative of what life was like for most black men in this country at that time. So Miles Davis in the 50s, the ups and downs, the triumphs, the defeats, the pain, the glory, and the love for the art of creative music continued. Thank you.